Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Brothers channel, and today I'm going to be doing a versus video between the Nike PG6 and the Nike Kyrie Infinity, or Kyrie 8 or Kyrie 8 Infinity. I know on Nike it says Kyrie Infinity, but I actually don't know why they don't call it the Kyrie 8. Pretty interesting. But anyways, so the Kyrie Infinity is going for 130 bucks, and then the Nike PG6 is finally, well, it's not available on Nike.com in the US, but it says like coming soon, and it's releasing April 22nd for 110 bucks. So I was incorrect about the price in the performance review, so I do apologize for that. But on StockX it said that the retail price was 120 bucks, but on Nike.com it says it's 110 bucks, right? So it is a $20 price difference. If you guys do want to cop either of these shoes, I try to leave an affiliate link in the description box. The PG6 is available on StockX right now if you guys want to get it right now. But let's get started off with the Tracciones, and as far as the traction pattern goes, it's very different, right? But for performance, they're both really nice. I would say I like the PG6 a little bit better, right? So on a clean court, the PG6 has an amazing bite, stops on a dime. The Kyries also have a very nice bite, but I would say the PGs stop a little bit harder. Also, for squeak, the PG6 is a lot squeakier. The Kyries don't squeak all too much. I mean, once you break it in a little bit, it does start to squeak just a tiny bit, but it's not super squeaky, unfortunately. Also, the Kyries you do have to break in, right? So for the first couple of days, it wasn't very nice, but once I started to keep playing it kept getting better. The PG6, it was good to go right out the box. And also for dust, PG6 picks up very minimal dust, and so does the Kyries. And as far as the durability goes, they're both pretty bad. I didn't play on outdoor court, so take it with a grain of salt, but just feeling the actual rubber, the PG6, like the grooves are, it feels a little bit thicker, but they're still really easily moved, right? Especially like here at the tip of like the forefoot. And same thing with the Kyries. The Kyries are super soft and the grooves are really thin, so I wouldn't recommend playing on outdoor court with either of these shoes. But if I had to choose, I would say the PG6 seems a little bit more durable. So for the most part, I would say the PG6 performs a little bit better just because it bites a little bit better, right? But like I said, the Kyries are still nice. Also, one thing that makes the Kyries a little bit better is the outsole curvature, but honestly, it's not that curved, you know what I mean? Like, also, the rubber does come up a good amount here on the medial side. So if you're doing these types of movements, you still have good like grip on the PG6. The Kyries are still pretty flat. Like, if you guys can see like the shape, right? So that's definitely a little unfortunate, just because like in the old Kyries, even in the MV1, it has a lot more outsole curvature. But anyways, there's that. Moving on to the heel to toe transition. So here in the PG6, I would actually say it's a little bit smoother just because the react here in the heel. So the react here in the heel compresses a good amount. It's pretty much fully exposed. I mean, the outsole comes up the cage at a little bit. We have a nice curved shape as well, but then like also the react is bouncy, right? So when you kind of like land on the heel, it gives you a nice bounce, and also this curved shape feels nice. And then here in the forefoot, we have a nice curved shape as well, and a lot of forefoot flex. And also, like, it seems like there is a midfoot chain plate, right? It doesn't really want to bend here in the midfoot. Here in the Kyries, right, it's a phylon, so it definitely does suck a little bit more. There's not as much compression, it's not as soft, and there is no bounce, but we have a nice curved shape. Here in the forefoot, nice curved shape as well, and a lot of forefoot flex, but also a lot of midfoot flex. Look at that. So torsional support, I would say, isn't as good here in the Kyries. I don't know why they didn't add a midfoot shape. I don't know if they did. I wish there was like a teardown of it. But anyways, the PG6 feels a little bit smoother for heel to toe transition, although the Kyries are still smooth. Alright, moving on to the cushioning setup. So here in the PG6, we have full length React, which is super nice. One of my favorite foams ever, right? Now, I love React, I love Boom Cushion from Li-Ning, and nothing else really is coming to mind. Maybe put Cushlon in there or something. But anyways, as far as the court feel goes, both of the shoes have really good court feel. So here in the forefoot, I would say it's pretty similar, right? Very good court feel in the forefoot. Maybe the PG6 is a little bit lower, but that's just nitpicking at that point, right? They're very similar. Here in the heel though, the PG6 feels a little bit higher up off the ground, just because I feel like they want to make the react a little bit thicker here. The Kyries feel a little bit lower to the ground, but it's not that big of a difference. And there also seems to be a little bit more of an offset here in the PG6. The Kyries seem a little bit more flatter for the offset. Also, of course, here in the Kyries, in the forefoot, we have a forefoot zoom strobel unit. and it's super bouncy. There's a lot of compression. You do lose a little bit of responsiveness, you know, when you're like sprinting just on your forefoot. Your foot does dig into that zoom unit, making it a little bit less responsive than just like a regular, like stiffer foam, right? Which the PG6 is a little bit stiffer here in the forefoot. And then of course, for heel strikes, the PG6 is better because the react here in the heel. The Kyrie's not very nice, right? So it all depends, right? So if you want better heel cushion, I would suggest going with the PGs. If you want better forefoot cushion, then go with the Kyrie's. Although, like I said, you do lose a little bit of responsiveness just because that zoom in is pretty damn crazy. In my personal opinion, I would go with the PG6 more consistently, right? So if I were to pick a cushioning setup to play in, I would probably pick the PG6 like 7 out of 10 times more, just because it seems more of like an everyday shoe to me. Like I wouldn't want to play in the forefoot zoom strobe unit every single day, but that's just my preference. Of course, it'll differ for everyone. Moving on to the materials. So the materials and the upper are extremely similar in both of the shoes, right? So here in the PG6, we have a nice like textile material. It's super thin, it conforms to your foot very well, and I really like it, right? The quality is still super nice, and the quality seems really similar here in the Kyrie's as well. Like it's super thin, it's soft, it conforms to your foot very well, right? So here in the forefoot, I would pretty much say it's like the same feeling material, especially on foot, right? Also here in the midfoot, stays extremely thin, as you guys can see. Same here in the Kyrie's. And for the tongue, both of these shoes surprisingly have a lot of padding. So here in the PG6, it's a very large tongue, as you guys can see. Look at that, super large. Same thing with the Kyrie's. But also they're super plush. They have a lot of foam in them. And the PG6, I would say, has a little bit less foam, right? Just a tiny bit, but it still feels really nice and cozy. The Kyrie's, especially on top of the tongue here, has more padding, right? Once you go down here into the bottom of the tongue, there's not as much padding. The PG6, I would actually say, stays a lot more consistent for the padding throughout this entire tongue. But for the most part, they feel very nice and cozy. As far as the ankle area goes, I would say the Kyrie's actually have a little bit more padding. So yeah, on foot, they both feel really similar. There's some like subtle differences like the tongue thickness and stuff like that. But that's just me nitpicking because it's a versus video and I have to tell you like the very specific differences. But overall, like on foot, they both feel really similar. So for the materials, I would tie it up. Maybe I would say the Kyrie's have like better quality materials because of the leather, but I mean it is $20 more expensive, right? All right, moving on to the fit. I went true to size for both of the shoes and they both fit me very well. I would say the PG6 runs a little bit long. The Kyrie's are very tight as far as length goes, so if you don't like that, probably go up half a size. Here in the toe box, they're both actually around the same, right? So in previous Kyrie's, like the Kyrie 7, the Kyrie 6, they're really snug here in the toe box. But here in the Kyrie Infinity, it gets a little bit roomier, especially with this material because it does stretch out a little bit over time, right? And same thing with the PGs. The PG5 actually is really narrow and super tight here in the toe box. The PG6 is a little bit more relaxed, although they both fit me well. And I would say both of the shoes fit very similarly. Alright, moving on to the support and lockdown, I had zero issues with lateral containment. I would actually say the Kyrie's feel a little bit more supportive though, just because the upper seems a little bit more sturdy. I don't know why. Maybe it has something to do with these leather straps. Maybe they add a little bit of something. The PG6, the material moves a little bit more. Like so. You're good to go here on the bottom of the shoe, but then like on top, it feels a little bit like softer, right? So personally for me, I had zero issues with it, but if you're a little bit heavier, I feel like the PG6 isn't going to be as supportive if you need a lot of support, right? So I would say the Kyrie's feel a little bit more supportive in that way. As far as lateral stability goes, let's see which shoe is wider. It's actually around the same. Look at that. Actually exactly the same it looks like. Maybe actually the Kyrie's are like a millimeter wider, but to be honest, pretty much the same, right? So lateral stability is really good in both of the shoes. Also, as you guys can see, the Kyrie's are like a mid-top, but doesn't really add a whole lot of ankle movement restriction. It actually feels like, for me personally anyway, it feels like a low-top shoe. You know, I still have pretty good ankle movement, so ankle support I'll pretty much tie it. Maybe the Kyrie's have a little bit more than the PGs, but like I said, not that nice for ankle support here in Kyrie's. All right, moving on to the weight. So I feel like they're gonna be around the same weight, right? So the Kyrie's are like 12 point something, 12.17, right? And then the PG6 is like 12.13. So pretty much the same exact weight. Pretty damn surprising, right? So yeah, I mean, it feels really minimal, especially here in front of the shoe because the materials are so thin. And then here in the back of the shoe, it gets a little bit cozier, it gets a little bit more comfortable, although it doesn't add too much bulk in my opinion. So it feels really nice on foot, feels lightweight, feels minimal, and also very responsive for both of the shoes, right? The traction's great. I would say the Kyries are a little bit less responsive just because of the forefoot zoom strobe unit, you know, just a tiny bit, but still a responsive shoe. So I guess the PG6 has the slight edge, but they're both very responsive shoes. All right, moving on to the ventilation. So, I mean, I would tie it up, right? For airflow, the Kyries are okay, and then the PG6, they're pretty good as well. So there is a little bit airflow through both of the materials here in the Kyries and the PGs, and then the tongue is pretty thick and the ankle area is pretty thick. So ventilation, I would pretty much tie it up. All right, moving on to the aesthetics. I don't know what it is, but I love the PG6. Have you guys seen the PG6 like PEs that Paul George has been rocking lately? I mean, he came back from his injury. He hasn't played in like a couple months, and he came back like a couple days ago. And like he had like a PG6 shining PE, which was absolutely amazing. And there was some like other PEs as well, like a peach color. And I really like the shoe. It grew on me a lot. The Kyrie's, not as much. And also, Kyrie hasn't been playing in the Kyrie Infinity. Like at all. He's been playing the Kyrie Low 3, actually. Not even the Kyrie Low 4. He's been playing the 3. So I'm guessing like Kyrie Irving probably doesn't like zoom that much. I feel like he likes a more, like a very responsive cushioning setup probably. That's just my guess. That's like, why isn't he playing in the Infinity? It's weird. Anyways. In my opinion, I feel like the PG6 looks better, but tell us what you guys think looks better down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, ooh, it's a pretty hard one, honestly, but in my opinion, I like the PG6 a little bit better, right? So like I said, the traction is a little bit better. It stops just a tiny bit better than the Kyrie's. Also, I like the cushioning setup better just because it's just more of like an everyday cushioning setup for me. And also the React is really nice. The zoom strobe unit in the forefoot, sometimes I want to play in and sometimes I don't want to play in as much, right? And the upper, like I said, feels really, really similar. Support and lockdown, very, very similar as well. So because of those things, I would have to say I like the PG6 better, right? But of course, if you want that crazy zoom unit in the forefoot and you want that crazy compression and bounce, then go with the Kyries. They both feel like, it's very surprising to me how similar they feel on foot besides the cushioning setup. So yeah, the Kyries are really nice, but I like the PG6 a little bit better. So anyways, that about concludes this versus video. Again, if you guys do want to cop either of these shoes, I'll try to leave an affiliate link in the description box. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.